Hey, my friends. We're just driving down the road. Lori's driving.
Hello.
It's backwards, so it always looks like I'm in the driver's seat on a car. So you know, if you're watching this later or live, I'm not driving. So,
Or are you?
or am I? But anyway, today, August 20th, is an important day for our household for a few different reasons. Number one, it's a big deal to us because we love celebrating the day that Lori and I got engaged. So that's a big day for us. It's also 21 years. And also we celebrate some of our family members that are having birthdays today. And I'm not on here to do that. But the 20th is a big day for Lori and I. And more so for the kids after today, because we retell the story. And as we retell the story and reshare, it's a good chance for them to experience it, sometimes for the first time. Even though Anna's 13, she doesn't remember what happened. And so on the 20th, we just take some time and we remember what God did. And so I think it's super important that I share this story right now, because there's just so much fear over sickness and disease and that kind of thing everywhere. And a lot of folks have different emotional reactions to all of what's going on. And I just thought, well, you know what? Here it is, my second birthday. Let me tell the story. And so, as the story goes, back in 2011, I was in one of the toughest seasons of my entire life. It was a great time. We were in DC. We were doing ministry. I was bivocational church planter, and which I'm still in ministry. If a lot of you guys may not know that, but I love to preach the word. So anyway, but back then we were planting our church in DC still, and I also had to have a regular job, because if you do church plant in like DC or a big city like that, you're not going to be able to support yourself off income. You're paying to do church. So I had a regular job, and I was working as both an IT director as well as an operations manager at an incredible financial firm in Rockville, Maryland, which I love dearly. It's now named Burt Wealth Advisors, and I love my old bosses there, Fred and Maria Cornelius. So grateful for them. They really undergirded me in a season where I was planting the church. But I was there working one day, and it had been a tough day. You know, the downturn was tough, and so those of us that went through 2007, 2008, 2009 downturn, it was stressful, financial firms. And so we were irking through that and making a comeback as a company. And we were branding, and we were trying to get our legs under us real good after all of that. And so I remember being there late one day, and there's a lot of things that were stressors. And in the middle of the rebranding, the printer had gotten a lot of stuff wrong, and it was a $10,000 mistake. And I was on the phone. I realized I had to work late, and I was stressed. And I was not in the healthiest place I've ever been. My weight was off. My stressors were high, and I had 2 jobs where I was working at least 40 hours a week at my full-time job, and then for ministry 25 to 30 hours a week, through weekends and nights. So at that moment at the desk that day in 2011, not the 20th, but it was about July of 2011, I was sitting there, and I had the worst piercing headache I'd ever had, and everything went black. And it was just pain. I mean, you talk about pain. It felt like the whole top of my head was coming off. And I went blind for about 4 minutes, just straight. And so I was so discombobulated. I was so shocked and thrown off that I yelled out to the only other person in the office that was working late with me, which was Merle. And I said, Merle, I cannot see. I can't see. And she said, what? And I said, Merle, I'm blind. I'm blind. Right now I'm blind. I cannot see. And she goes, Dustin, are you okay? I was like, I'm not okay. My head hurts. I can't see. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't feel right in my skin. Something's wrong. I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And so Merle comes running over. God bless her. You talk about a sweetheart. She's like, we got to do something. Can we get you an aspirin or something? Maybe it's a real bad migraine. You really can't see. I said, I cannot see anything. And you guys, my eyes had fully blacked out. And she grabs me an aspirin. Doctor said that might have been one of the things that saved me, because my blood pressure was through the roof, and I had had a stroke event, and I did not know it. I always expected that a stroke would be worse than what I was experiencing, but it was bad, you guys. And so I didn't know it. I self-diagnosed, called Lori and said, hey, Laura, I had a weird thing happen at work. Eyes went black, had a bad headache, but I'm okay. I'm going to finish up the day and drive home. She's like, I need to take you to the emergency room right now. And I said, nah, I'm good. No big deal. And so I just pushed it off and didn't do anything about it. And you guys, it was a stroke event. It was a stroke. So I drove home and everything and just went back, life is normal or whatever. And I noticed some stuff was wrong. Number one, when my eyesight came back after about 4 minutes, half my left eye just was not right. Like I couldn't see right. It was blurry, and the other eye was hard. It was harder to see. What I didn't know is I lost half my left eye in that stroke event. I lost literally, there's only a moon shape left of my left eye because the blood flow had stopped and restricted, and I lost that whole chunk of eye. And it dragged this eye down. So I knew my glasses didn't work right. And then I was tripping. I kept tripping on things and catching my foot on stuff and falling. And I didn't feel right and my footing didn't work right. And so I didn't realize that I had lost my footing, my balance. So something had happened in my brain. And then there's other things too. Like I couldn't get words. I lost memories. Like Lori would say something, I'm like, I don't remember that at all. And I have the best memory ever. And other things. I just didn't feel right in my skin. Some stuff had happened. And so I pushed it off hoping nothing had happened. I had in the back of my head the fear. Maybe that was a stroke, but I'd never say it out loud until I finally had to get my glasses changed. So I had to go get my glasses changed because they didn't work anymore. I couldn't see when I was driving. So I went to go get my eye doctor to do my appointment for that year, and she just stops and she looks at me and she goes, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. She said, I'm just concerned. She said, because Mr. Hedrick, it looks like there's new damage to your eye, and I need you to get a doctor's appointment because I think you've had a stroke. And I was just dumbfounded. And I just sit there, I said, no, it can't be. She goes, I really think you have. And so I finished up the appointment, got the new glasses ordered or whatever, and I went and sat in my car and called Lori and told her, I said, Laura, the eye doctor told me I need to go to a doctor because it looks like I've had an honest to goodness stroke. And I just sit there, guys, and cried. I cried so hard because I couldn't believe that at 36 years old, I had had a stroke, And I sat there in my car and just cried out to God. I was like, God, this cannot be happening to me. This is crazy. You sent me here. I'm planting a church. I'm investing in people. I'm doing this work. We're doing everything we can, and we're doing the best we've ever done right now. This is not an okay time to have a stroke, as crazy as that sounds. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor, after just checking me out a little bit, immediate red flags. He sends me to an ophthalmologist, and he wants to check that eye out. Ophthalmologist has red flags and says, there's worse going on here than you think. They send me off from an MRI. The MRI comes back, and my doctor's like, we have to really look in at this. We need to have another appointment. Let's schedule an appointment. But he was scheduling an appointment all the way like 6 months out or something. And so little did I know they were looking for indicators that there was worse things going on. They were going to push my appointment out to see if worse happened. But Lori had a friend who had a kid at the daycare that she was running back then. And she just happened to tell them about it. And her friend worked at Walter Reed and worked with military vets coming back who had brain damage. And she said, do you mind if I take the MRIs and let my husband read them? That's what he does for a living. And she handed them off, and her husband said, I don't know who this person is, but if you like them at all, and if you're any kind of friend, you need to tell them to hurry and do something because this is brain damage. It looks like white matter disease, and it's possibly MS or something like that. So he already knew. And then that just escalated everything. So I went back to my doctor. I ended up being referred to Georgetown University hospitals, and started going through Georgetown. The Kennedys went to those hospitals. And so at that hospital, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I had had a stroke event. I lost half my eye, and I had damage in the optic nerve. And the neuro-ophthalmologist who at the end made the final diagnosis on the eye said that I would definitely lose that eye at some point in the future. And his response was, but at least you got one good one, which threw Lori off. And she went off on him. Through all these different appointments, I had multiple MRIs and MRAs and so much more. I just kept clinging to God. I just kept clinging to God, you guys. I remember one of the first MRIs. This is hard. You know, I'm sorry. It's hard. It's hard to go here. This was so hard on my family. It was hard on me. But I remember I was in the MRI tube. And it was around that time that I was holding little Lydia. She was a baby. You won't see a lot of pictures of me holding her when she was a baby because I dropped her on her head. Because I forget my hand. It wouldn't work. So I'd hold her to my chest when I hold her so I didn't drop her. Again, she was fine, but it was so hard. And I was in an MRI tube, and I was just there. It was me and God. You're in there for 45 minutes to an hour, you know? And they got stuff in me. They always put contrast in me, and I always reacted. If you've ever seen what happens when gadolinium contrast reacts to somebody, they have bruising. I had bruising sometimes up to my shoulder blade and all down my arm. And they'd say, oh my goodness, you got to tell us, that can cause you to have worse issues. But I just wanted to get it done. Oh, we're going in a tunnel, Lord. You guys, oh my God, we're going in a tunnel. Hold on. If I lose y'all, I'll come right back on. Just stick with me. I'm going underground. I'm sorry. Dang it, Lord. Anyways, I'm going to try. It says I'm still alive. I'm going to try to keep going. But anyway, so I'm in this MRI tube. It's so strange. We're in a tunnel right now. And I remember being in the MRI tube. And as I'm in the MRI tube, I just call out to God and say, God, you got to help me. And I didn't know they had microphones. I didn't know they had microphones in MRIs. I didn't know that's how it worked. And so in there, the only thing I could do is pray and preach to myself. And here I'm a preacher, and I got 45 minutes in an MRI tube, and I'm like, I'm going to own this. So all I could think of to do was to repeat the Psalm 23, over and over and over again. And so I started with, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And I would go through that Psalm. And then when I get down to Jesus, probably about the fourth or fifth time, I got to, even through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. I remember being in there and saying, God, you're with me. You're here with me in this valley of the shadow of death. And I was preaching that first time in the MRI tube, I'm preaching myself. You are with me. I may have white matter disease, but you're with me. I might have MS, but you're with me. I might have vision loss. I may lose half my left side, may not work right. I may trip. I may fall. I may be weak, but you're with me. I'm going through all this pain, but you're with me. And so I started preaching that in that MRI tube. Through the valley of the shadow of death, you're with me. And then all of a sudden I had this revelation, guys. The valley of the shadow of death, it just dawned on me. It's just a valley where death's shadow falls. Death doesn't own that valley. Death doesn't own that valley. Death may stand over that valley, and death's big fat shadow falls across it. But let me tell you something. The shadow of a thing is always much bigger than the thing itself. So if death's shadow's falling across that valley and I'm there, I can know that that shadow is bigger than the reality. And that reality cannot stop me. That reality cannot stop my God. And then here's the revelation that hit me in that MRI tube, that first MRI I had, and I had tons, that wherever God is, He owns that space. In the valley of the shadow of death, let me tell you something about the valley of the shadow of death. That's God's valley. He owns that valley. He holds your hand. And death's shadow might fall on it, but that doesn't change the fact that He's got you and He'll take you through it. And I was preaching that to myself in that MRI tube, just yelling out to God, God, you got me. This valley's not a big deal because you're with me. I love this valley because you're here. It makes it worth it. It's all worth it. It's all going to be worth it all if you're with me in this valley. And they took me out of the MRI tube when I got done. And again, I didn't know there was microphones in there. The lady is tears. She's snotting tears, the technician, and she's just crying. She's bawling. And she goes, oh my God, we heard everything you preached. We heard it all. She goes, I got everyone. I went and got everyone in the office, and we were all in there listening and bawling as you preached to yourself. Psalm 23. She goes, I've been out of church for years now. I used to be a Sunday school teacher. I used to invest in people. She goes, honey, I'm going back to church. I love Jesus more because I heard you in that MRI tube. And at that moment, she hugged on me, took out the contrast and all that kind of stuff, just hugged on me, and she goes, you have just blessed me beyond what you can know. You have blessed this office. Thank you for living your faith out loud. And I didn't even know I did. I was just begging God for mercy. And at that moment, I had this realization. I'm going to make the devil regret me being sick. I'm going to be so good at this that he doesn't want me to be in hospitals. He doesn't want me to be in MRI tubes. So from that point on, I made it about every other person I could. Every time I went somewhere, I was praying for them and ministering to them. You guys, when they hooked me up and they did the first round of tests on my brain, I can't even think what you call those. What do you call those? Oh, they put all the little electrodes in your brain, whatever that is. It's EEG or whatever. They're doing that. They said, you need to talk for 40 minutes. And I'm like, talk about what? And the lady goes, whatever you want. I prayed and I preached a message to her heart. And let me tell you something. She had to sit in there and listen to me for 45 minutes, preach the goodness of God with those little electrodes in. She got saved that day. She came in. She got saved. She's crying. She goes, I just asked Jesus in my heart. I'm going home. I'm telling my mama she's been praying for me for years. And I just accepted Jesus because I heard you during this. And then I turned to her and said, that right there is proof that God's God. I said, you want to know why? Because you just got saved and feel like you heard God. Oh, and she told me, she goes, you've been the face of God to me today. I said, that's proof that there's a God right there, hon. So when you doubt later, know it's God. Because let me tell you something. Nobody would ever say that a dude with brain damage was the face of God to him. She goes, oh my God, you're right. You're right. That day, I prayed for her, I prayed for a cancer patient, and I prayed for 2 other people I got a hold of on elevators, and everybody was healed. You guys, that's what God was doing. That's what God did. There's so many other stories, but let me end with this. During this process, my family believed for me to be healed. My wife was dragging me everywhere she could get prayer for me, and people would pray for me everywhere. We went to one place, they called me out of a crowd of like 1,000 people, spoke words over me, and then started praying for me, and then people from everywhere started praying. You guys, on August 20th of 2012, we went back to my doctor at Georgetown University Hospitals, Dr. Mora. He brought us in the back, and we have been in dozens of these appointments. We've been to the doctor so many times. I'm diagnosed MS by then. I've got lesions on my frontal lobe, posterior lobe. I've lost half my left eye. I'm limping. Half my body ain't working right. You hearing me? I'm going down. They tried to give me a handicap parking thing. And I said, no, thank you. Not until I can't walk anymore. I'm not joking. True story. We walk in after all of that, August 20th, 2012. And I knew I was feeling better. I just didn't know how much better. Dr. Moore sits us down, brings in someone to support his findings, and he taps the file that's on my lap, this thick. He taps the file on my lap and says, I cannot comment on what's in this file today. All I can talk about is what's on this screen. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I will not talk about what's in this file today. I will only talk about what's on this screen. And we're like, what's on the screen? He says, I don't see anything. Which Lori starts crying because she thinks that my brain is toast. And then he goes, no, this is good news. He said, preacher, your brain looks good. How's your preaching? And I said, what are you saying? He said, Mr. Hedrick, outside these doors in this waiting room, nobody's getting good news today except you. We can't find anything wrong anymore except for one small lesion on the back of your brain and, of course, the eyeball. Everything else is gone. And I said, what about all the lesions on the frontal lobe? And you guys, I got pictures and I got files sitting on my lap. He goes, the blood work came back, everything. He goes, I cannot comment on that. I said, what about MS? You guys diagnosed me with MS. We're going through, what do we do? He goes, I cannot comment on any of that. But can you do me a favor? We don't see this often. We never see this happen. And this stuff doesn't go into remission. So this is not something we're used to. But can you just keep us posted? We'd like to know how things go for you in the future because this is a very interesting experience for us. And Lori's like, you mean God healed him? And he just looks and says, I mean, you're getting a clean bill of health today and you never have to come back again. August 20th, 2012. Do you understand what I'm saying, guys? My God healed me of MS. Jesus Christ healed me of MS, healed my brain, healed white matter disease, lesions on the brain. And all that's left are tokens. Proof it actually happened. Gave me my entire life back. So we go out to eat with some dear friends, Pat and Sue, and they're just like in over their heads, excited because they walked with us through the whole thing, precious people. And we're sitting there at the table and we're just so happy. And the waiter's like, what's going on with you guys? And we couldn't help it. We all tell the story. And the waiter looks and says, oh my God, that just blessed me so much. And he walks away and he comes back with this tiramisu and sets it down on the table. And we're like, what's going on here? He goes, that's on me. Happy second birthday. God gave you your life back. So today is the day we always remember my second birthday because God gave me my life back. Now, in this season, I felt like it was so necessary just to do this. I've shared more right now than I usually do. I mean, I wrote a book on this, but I don't usually share all this way because it's a lot of heart and it's hard to refill it and go through it. But the reason why I'm sharing it is this. In a season like this, let me tell you something. Your God can handle it. Let me tell you something. You got struggles, you got loss, you got battles, you got needs. You got healing that you need. You're worried about all this stuff that's going on in viral activity and sickness. Our God can do it. He's got this. Do you understand what I'm saying? He's got you. He's got you. Just reach out to him and trust him. I believe him. Okay? I am a sign and I'm a witness. And I'm still every day making the devil regret he ever touched my body. Because guys, I'm a witness to the world that God heals. The proof is in me. I love you guys. I hope this has encouraged somebody. If I can pray for anyone else out there, you let me know. Reach out to me on Messenger and I'll pray for your needs. I just love y'all and blessings. I'll see y'all.